All right, so I'm just putting together a quick video to discuss and describe the two lesson plans upcoming in relationship to Compass. And so these are the last lesson plans before we begin having them work on their final semester summative, something I wanted to talk about in our meeting. Hopefully we can meet very early next week to talk about that. I've been throwing it out there every time we meet just to be thinking about how we might collaborate on creating. I mean, I can just do it. I just feel like that's, I don't want to just say, like, here's the final project and not take any of your input. If that's what y'all want or if that's easier, then I'll just kind of keep going. But I was hoping that we could meet to talk about, how we might create something. I was hoping to hear just different ideas on how we might create something that allows them to um, show their summative mastery of these four tools different than what we did last year, because last year they had an assignment where they wrote a paper and then they also had like a company presentation, and it's very different this year. One, not just because of being in virtual right now, but because of the reality of where we'll still be in May, that it doesn't make sense to have them reach out to companies right now. Um, and so that was decided to be pushed back till January, as far as just like starting to send their contact emails to companies. But I had said a few times the last times we met that I thought it would be better for our students and just better for morale to not just have them write another paper. And I wanted to explore some ideas for that summative. So be thinking about that, because I would like to talk about it if we get a chance to meet, or I can just put together the project and tell you guys what it is, but I didn't want to like not include your voices in that process. But I'll be working on it over break, and hopefully we can try to get a meeting on the books early on next week. So anyways, this is the last lesson for before that summative. It's the last tool. They've now been exposed to spectrum of social change as a tool, systems mapping, iceberg, and then this is the final tool, which is Compass. So you'll open up the lesson by asking them, what does the word sustainability mean to you? You can have students come off mute and share, or share in the chat, whatever works with your group. Here's the definition that you'll provide to them. Have them make connections. How does this connect to what you were already thinking, or how does this connect to what you wrote in the chat? You might draw some of those connections for them. Let them know that the next two classes, we're going to be talking about this concept of sustainability, specifically through their last and final tool, which is the Compass tool. You'll immediately have them get out notes. Sometimes our lessons are activity first and then notes, but this lesson is going to start with notes. You'll give them these notes that the Compass theory argues a sustainable system is composed of four balanced branches. So basically, things only last or are sustainable when they have balance in these four branches. So nature, economy, society, well-being. You'll give them nature, economy, society, well-being. I normally give an example, like I pick one system, like I might just take the Columbus School as a system. How do we incorporate nature, both the natural and physical resources, the space that we use, not just, what that space is, but how we take care of it, how we manage our resources, our economy, how do we function, production and consumption, investments, how do we manage where our money goes and how that's decided, social, how do we create shared values, a sense of culture, how do our policies help us build an identity within the school, and our well-being, how are people feeling taken care of, how do they feel that their individual health matters, that their self-development and their quality of life matters. Those are the four components of Compass. Then you'll give them these last notes, which is the purpose of Compass allows us to examine our issues as well as our solutions through these lens, through four specific lens, meaning nature, economy, society, and well-being, in order to these 3 points: find and critique areas of weakness in order to create a social change or develop a social change, examine the sustainability of a social change idea, or evaluate unintended harm in social change ideas. So those are the 3 ways that the Compass tool is useful, which we'll come back to that. But those are the notes. And so then you're going to let them know that we are going to practice Compass in some breakout rooms and small groups. And but before we do that, quick video. So this is just a video. It's a useful video to play to help them. This is another way to think about Compass. So you can play this video and then say, okay, so now we're going to do our practice. You're going to give them this link in the chat, or you can post it on your Schoology. Please make a copy of your own for your own classes. This is the one for my classes. So you'll make a copy, and what they're going to do is that you're going to put them in breakout rooms of 4. If you want bigger smaller breakout rooms, then you're going to need to make more slides. This one only has 8, which represents 4 breakout rooms. If you want 5 breakout rooms, then you need to just copy and make 9 and 10. Each breakout room is going to work on 2. And so you'll see that here, breakout room 1 has 2, breakout room 2 has 2. So you'll let them know based on your breakout room, go to your assigned slides, and you're going to work on 2 things. First thing you're going to work on is identifying a organization, project, maybe a project that you've done in the past, or a project that you've heard of, a former ISD project that you know a lot about, or a company that you think is super successful, or your own family, or ancient government. It can be, the government of Rome. Maybe you're a history buff, something you decide on in your group, and you're going to argue its success is based on the compass balance. So what they'll do is they'll be putting post-it notes in each of the quadrants to demonstrate that balance. So for this first one, they're going to put post-it notes in nature, 2 in economy, 2 in society, 2 in well-being. That reveals balance, that reveals the success of this company, organization, or project that they thought of that uses compass to argue balance and shows why they were successful. So basically they're explaining this idea of success and sustainability through the compass by putting post-it notes in all 4 of the quadrants for whatever company, organization they think of. Then they're also going to use this compass tool to demonstrate why something might have failed. So they're going to think of an organization, a system, a government that's failed, a country that's struggling, and they're going to use compass to identify weaknesses. So they're going to put as many post-it notes as they can, but they're going to try to show where there's a weakness in that particular system. So they might have the well-being be really empty, or the nature be really empty, and that's going to be something that's going to be what demonstrates the imbalance, which ultimately answers the question, why did this company, organization, or group, it offers the explanation for failure. So on their first one, all of the quadrants will be filled up with at least 2 post-it notes. In the second one, they will have a quadrant that's either empty or very light, and that's going to be the evidence of why this particular system or organization or government or whatever they chose didn't work. That'll probably take them 10 to 15 minutes. I would probably give them 15. Let them know that if they finish early, they can have a brain break, whatever works for you and your class structures, but that they're doing 2 parts of the Jamboard per breakout room. And then once you bring them back, you're going to have them do a silent gallery crawl, meaning they're going to be exploring each other's Jamboards. Let them know that when they, cameras off is fine. I'll tell my students after 6 minutes, I'm going to ask you all to turn your cameras on and write in the chat. I always give them the option, if they're super uncomfortable, they don't have to turn their cameras on, but I'll try to get as many cameras on as possible. And then I'll say, okay, folks, so you're going to write this answer to this sentence in the chat. So you might want to tell them that before the gallery crawl. I'll probably say, as you're looking through each other's Jamboards, you're going to ask yourself, what about compass didn't make sense? And how did looking at another group's Jamboard help make it make sense? So you might say, something you might be thinking about is like, I'm still not quite sure what well-being means. So that might be what you specifically look at different people's examples of well-being. Or you might say, I'm still not getting society. And so think about what you might still need development on as you explore each other's Jamboards, because what you're going to do when you come back after the silent 6-minute gallery crawl is fill out this statement. One new thing I learned about compass by looking at my peer's Jamboard is blank. And so you're going to have to write, that's your exit ticket, a detailed, I didn't understand society, but this example made me blank. Or I didn't, get the ways that something could impact well-being, but this example blank. Or I hadn't thought about this as part of the economy, but this example blank. So you're going to be looking for some new learning that you got by looking at your peer's Jamboard. That'll be their exit ticket, and that ends the class. All right. So second class is very easy, similar to how the iceberg structure worked. It's really just working on the formative. And this is very similar to with iceberg. At this point, they're just practicing it so this is ungraded. This Jamboard is just for them to do the activity. You don't have to grade it or put it in the grade book, do anything with that. It's just for them to learn and practice. They come back, class 2, ask them to review compass with you. You might come up with a more exciting activity to review compass, and that's your choice. But I'm just going to ask students to share with me what they remember about nature, or maybe give some examples of each of the 4 quadrants. What is the key idea of compass? That you have to have balance between these 4 things. Okay, so that is going to lead us into this. So in order to see the different ways and that we can use Compass, we're going to do a formative activity. So you might remind them, I'm actually going to copy this note. You're going to remind them that not only is it that we have to have balance, we can use it for these 3 specific things: finding, critiquing areas of weakness. We can use it to identify whether or not a project's good, or evaluate unintended harm. So that's what we're going to practice in the formative. So you'll put the Compass stations in Schoology. I'm going to let my students work in groups of 3. And so once I explain the activity, I'll ask them, who do you want to work with? And I'll create your groups. They can work into groups of 3 max. And then I'll explain each of the stations. So this document that's in Schoology will take them to this. The main thing that I'm going to explain is that in this part of the Compass, nature, economy, well-being, what they're doing is just bullet points. All they need to do is bullet points. They don't need to write sentences here in the light blue. All they need to do is write some bullet points of nature, economy, and then based off of that, they'll write their conclusions. And that's where they're going to write a more detailed explanation. And that's using the Compass to identify an organization's area of growth. Okay, then they're going to move on into another way to use the Compass, which we said is using the Compass to evaluate whether or not a idea is a good idea. So they'll watch this YouTube video that is about a social change. It's a 3-minute video about a social change at a school in Guatemala. And they're basically going to decide, based on Compass, would you recommend this project to receive further funding for or expansion? Like, do you think this is a good project based off of Compass? So that means that they are going to need to look at, well, how does it address issues of nature? How does it address issues of the economy? Does it have a positive impact on well-being? Does it have a positive impact on society? They're looking for balance, because again, according to Compass, the more balanced, the more sustainable a project. Based on what they find in that video, what they discuss together, what they put as bullet points here, they will write an explanation of whether or not they think that project deserves funding. That's station 2. And then the third use of Compass, they're going to critique dangerous, non-sustainable solutions. For this third one, they don't need to write a explanation. Basically, it's already been given to them that there's this concept of saviorism or voluntourism that's dangerous, and they're using Compass to explore why. So they'll use Compass to say, well, here's how it's dangerous to nature. Here's how it's dangerous to economy, well-being, and society. So they're using the Compass tool as a means by which they're answering the question, why is voluntourism or this concept of saviorism dangerous? If they don't want to do that, they can come up with their own. Like if they're like, well, I don't think that's something I want to do, then you can tell them that they're more than welcome to come up with their own idea, concept, project that they think is harmful or dangerous, and use the Compass to explain why, to show that it's dangerous because of the 4 different components. So that's basically the formative. That's the whole class, right? Like you're just going to open up the class, warm up, remember the 4 points of a Compass. Compass is useful for these 3 things. We're going to actually practice those 3 things right now. Explain to them the document, have them open it in Schoology, tell you your groups, put them in groups, and they work on that for the entire class. And that's the end of class 2. Whatever they don't finish in class, I think it makes sense for it to become homework, or you can give them like 20 minutes in the next class before introducing the final project. And so we do need to either meet to talk about the final project, or y'all can just let me know you want me to create it, and I'll just create it and share what I create. But this is the last structured lesson plans in terms of teaching systems and sustainability tools. This is the 4th of 4. They got spectrum of social change, systems mapping, iceberg, and now Compass. And then we'll close out the semester having them do their final project where they explore a social issue. Last year, it was a paper that they explored a social issue through the lens of these 4 tools. But I'm just trying to think, like I've been saying in the last few meetings, if we can, just for our students, try to think of something that maybe isn't a paper, but I'll be thinking about that. Anyways, so yeah, that's Compass lesson plan 2. It's just reviewing and putting them straight to work on this formative of 3 stations. Let me know if you have questions.